So here we are in 2019, in a couple weeks, VR will be changed for the best. Hopefully. Wireless VR, all-in-one room-scale headsets, and possibly one of the most spectacular gifts from Gaben to the world, and that will be the Vive Index and Knuckle controllers. But until then, let's go in and take a final look and see what the state of NOLO VR is like in 2019. A review based on the Deepoon E3C. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so some of you may remember NOLO VR. To put it simply, it is an all-in-one add-on tracking solution for almost any seated VR headset out there, including but not limited to the Google Cardboard, the Gear VR, the Pimax 4K, the Oculus Go, and now the Deepoon E3C, which is being sold as a bundle. At the time, back in 2017, it was a lifesaver for some people, since your only real options for a room-scale VR experience was the Oculus CV1 and the HTC Vive. That being said, at the same time, there was also the DIY PS Move setup that was pretty good when done correctly. So anyways, almost 2 years have now passed. How's the tracking and the software integration? Well, surprisingly not terrible. Things have improved, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at the hardware before we go any further. So here's the headset itself. Now, although it looks very similar to a headset that we have reviewed about a year ago, and that would be the E3B model, for the better or worse, it does have some minor and major changes, with the first one being the textured front part. The old one had a smooth surface. A quick look at the top, we get the NoloVR headset tracker, which is detachable and it has its own micro USB cable attached, which is used for power and data. But it's actually also used to sync up the base stations and the controllers. On the bottom we have two ventilation holes as well as a microphone port, except there is no microphone because the microphone seems like it has been completely removed, alongside the 3.5mm audio cable which does not exist anymore. The previous model did have a microphone and it sounded pretty good, and on top of here you'll find the 3.5mm headset jack, which pretty much was an extension cable for your headphones. If we go ahead and take a look inside here, we can see that there is no longer a 3.5mm headset cable, which is quite unfortunate. That being said, I have been told that this is a prototype unit, and if anything changes, I'll keep you guys updated in the description below. As for the main cable, which is pretty interesting, it actually uses a proprietary Type-C connector. That being said, it is not using a Type-C link. It is only being used as an interface to transfer power, data, and the HDMI signals. Now as for the cable, as you can see, it kind of looks like a jumbled mess, which is true to an extent, but it is a pretty decent cable. The total cable length here is about 16 feet long or 5 meters, which is the exact same as the HTC Vive. That being said, we actually have two cables here that are routed through the back here using Velcro, that are held together at various points using mesh tape, which seems to be doing the job pretty well. As for the actual connectors, we have 3 USBs and 1 HDMI. The main 3 are for the headset and are being split up with this cable right here, which is the headset connector, and the last one is for the NOLO VR tracker, which again has its own dedicated cable. Overall, this cable is pretty decent, and we'll talk more about it in just a bit in terms of comfort. Because of the weight it is attached to the back of the headset, it does provide you with some pretty good counterweights. Speaking of weight, it doesn't weigh a whole lot. In fact, the cable's connected here and it weighs around 406. Now without the cable, it actually weighs about 385. Now moving on to the strap, it has been greatly improved over the previous design. Previously, it was using this terrible system right here, which although looked pretty cool and it kind of looked pretty comfortable thanks to this back pad right here. It is a giant pad that feels pretty comfortable when you're squeezing it with your thumb, but when you actually put on the headset, it didn't feel all that great because of the aggressive angle that's going up top. What we have here is a weak rubber band loaded rail system, which didn't work out too well. You really cannot go wrong with it. It's simple, it's comfortable, and most importantly, it's easily adjustable. And so let's go ahead and talk about the comfort. Pretty much everything here is the same as the previous headset, same face pad, same nose flap, and the same microfiber mesh. Pretty good in comfort after you mod it. If you take a look here, here's what the headset used to look like. As you can see, the facepad here extends all the way inside the nose area, which is not comfortable because when you actually wear this thing, your nose will actually be on top of the facepad inside, and that is not comfortable, and you're pretty much just choking yourself at that point. So what I've done here is I went ahead and cut out a portion, and now it is much better. And if you want to increase the comfort level even more, you can go ahead and actually trim down or completely remove the nose flap. Every now and then I can feel it with my eyelashes, and that's kind of weird. So you can either trim it or remove it if you want to improve this headset in terms of comfort. And so let's go ahead and talk about the lenses and the displays. So what we have here are actually 45mm lenses, at least that's what I have measured, with a fixed physical IPD of 64. Again, that's what I have measured. Now on the website, they claim that it's self-adjusting, whatever that means. IPD from 54 to 68 or something. That being said, I think what they're trying to say here is that the sweet spot is pretty big. And I would say yeah, although the lenses here are Fresnel lenses, they do have a pretty big sweet spot compared to the Vive. The Vive, you have to be perfectly centered if you want to get the best experience. You do have a bit more leeway. That being said, the Vive has focus and IPD adjustments. This one does not. Everything is fixed. Now, of course, if you're someone who uses glasses, they may not have the best experience. My personal prescription is around 2.5, and I really had no issues wearing this thing without my glasses, so that's cool. So, how's the display? Well, they are 2.5K or 1440p 5.5-inch display. The colors are pretty decent. They're not super vibrant. They're not really impressive. And in terms of ghosting, it has some very minimal ghosting, which is only really noticeable when you're looking for it. Otherwise, when you're playing in games, you probably won't notice it a whole lot. The screen door effect is not as prominent as the the Vive. The Vive feels like a Stone Age headset compared to a whole lot of other headsets out there because of the insane amount of screen door effect that you get with that thing. With this one, it's under control, it's not terrible, it's definitely better. And now before we go ahead and jump into it, let's go ahead and talk about the NOLO VR system, just in case if you have forgot what it looks like and how it functions. Basically, you have the controllers here, and the controls here are pretty much exactly the same as the Vive controllers, at least when it comes to the buttons. Now in terms of comfort, I would much rather have the NOLO VR tracker. It is way more comfortable than holding this massive thing right here, and of course, this thing has better tracking, but it would have been nice if the Vive controller was a little something like this, but that's not happening. That being said, again, it feels pretty great in the hand. The buttons are nice and tactile, no complaints there. The trigger here, compared to the Vive, it has less travel distance, but it does get the job done. And the trackpad here is pretty okay as well. It's not 100% uniform all around when you press it. As for the grips, well, they're the exact same as the Vive controller. They're very hard to reach, and you do need a bit of force to get to them. Here's one last look at the headset tracker. Now this thing syncs up the controllers and the base stations together. It's got a button right here with an LED, and again, the micro USB connection on the side. And lastly, we have the base station. Now this thing is pretty impressive. It's pretty cool, and it pretty much works right out of the box. You plug it in, and it just works. Oh boy. What I mean is, when you press the button right here, they pretty much all instantly connect. As with the Vive, you need to wait for the base stations to detect, turn on, start spinning and syncing, and then a minute later, then you have the Vive ready. With this one, you're pretty much ready within 5 to 10 seconds. But of course, you need to have this thing at a stable station. Now, although it's not 100% accurate, and we'll take a look at it in just a bit, how it tracks, it is battery powered. And you can pretty much place this anywhere, and it does not require any cables whatsoever unless you want to power it externally. Or you can go ahead and charge it, power it, as well as updating the firmware, and the same goes with all of these guys. They're all battery powered except for the actual headset tracker. Because it syncs up everything, it needs a cable at all times. And right here you have your pairing button. And the most optimal way you can actually go ahead and install this thing is around head level, and that's where I had the best experience in terms of tracking. Now this thing can actually run for a really long time, I think like 2 hours or so, I'm not even too sure, but the batteries here, they last a pretty good decent amount of time, so you can go ahead and play your whole VR session, and you should still have some juice to spare. Anyways, enough talk, let's go ahead and jump in and see what this thing looks like in-game. But you know what, let me give you a quick tour of the software and the pairing process. So here's the software, it is straightforward, and it has about everything that you need, including the NoloVR integration, easy access to the brightness controls, calibration, firmware updates, the serial number of your headset, the version, so you can actually go ahead and get some support if you need it. With the Novice Wizard, it will bring up the initial setup process when you actually install the software. This button right here will start up Steam VR, and this one is self-explanatory, it will just disable NoloVR. On the bottom, on each of these menus, it will give you a tutorial on how to do everything that you need to do. For example, for the pairing process, it will give you a step-by-step tutorial on how to do it with some very nice diagrams, and I have to say, it looks pretty cool. As for the firmware updater, it will also give you a tutorial on how to do it. It will pretty much tell you not to use the all-in-one cable, because in the box you do get a 3-in-1 charging cable, so you can go ahead and charge up both controllers as well as the base station using a single cable, which is nice. As for the calibration process for the NOLO VR system, once again, it's quite simple, and I'll show you how to do it in just a bit. Right on top here, you can go ahead and log in. You can select a file to play, so you can go ahead and play a video using the built-in theater system, which is pretty cool. So you can press that button and it'll open up a theater, and once you actually go ahead and play something, it will look a little something like this. Very nice and cozy, all by yourself in the center, and the best possible seat. And of course, you do have some controls, so you can go ahead and control everything by pressing the spacebar and holding down your headset towards whatever menu that you want to control. So you can go ahead and change the scene to the beach, as well as your bedroom, which again looks pretty cozy, but it's kind of too dark, and that's a pretty dangerous place to put a dart. And yes, you do have controls to control what kind of video you're playing, so it's a 3D side-by-side, over top, 180, 360, you name it, it's all in here. You can also lock up your vision, so when you move the headset, it won't change where you're looking, it will simply stay in the same spot inside your headset. So for example, you can sit in bed and you can still watch your video. You can also turn off the lights, recenter, it'll give you a 5-second countdown, aspect ratio 16:9 and 4:3, and lastly, an exit button. So that is a very nice inclusion that they have added in the software, all built in right out of the box. They don't even have to have the NOLO VR system running or Steam VR, but they actually have another cool feature inside the software, and that would be a virtual desktop mode. So once you press that button inside the headset, you will be able to see whatever you're looking at right now. So this window will always be up, and you can choose between flat and curved, reset orientation. There's a very simple in-house made virtual desktop kind of thing. And that is really awesome, something that is functional and useful. So other than those two options, lastly we have the Fitness Genie, which is on by default when you actually start up the software. Basically, this is a floating thing that will give you your calories and how much you've ran and do all that kind of stuff, which I don't think a lot of people would be using, but nonetheless it is another cool feature. You also have your tests, so it would give you a report of your computer and if it's good enough for VR. And finally, we have the system configuration, which is the overall configuration menu for the software here. So the usual boot up options and all that kind of stuff, the display mirror, the control bar, and pretty much everything you need, including the DK mode. So you can go ahead and play some old Oculus games on this thing. You can also do some updates and it will tell you what kind of version it is and if you can do it or not. If you need help, you can go to the forums, the FAQ, send an error code, or view the actual manuals. And lastly, the About Us page. And that's pretty much it for the software. Straightforward, pretty simple, and it gives you just about everything that you need. And really, so far I had no issues with it, never crashed, never had an issue detecting the headset. It all simply works.
Everything just works. All of this just works.
And now let me go ahead and show you how quick it is to actually get started. So as you can see, everything here is off except for the headset, because of course it is currently hooked up, and the same thing goes for the headset tracker. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and actually place your base station on top of something where it can be around head level. And once you do that, you can go ahead and turn it on. It would pretty much instantly pop up on the screen here, really nice and quick. And as for the controllers, it takes about another 5 seconds. All you have to do is to go ahead and launch Steam VR, which also instantly detects the headset. So let's jump in. Alright, microphone ready, camera ready, and the screen recorder ready. So of course what happened here is my headset went out of calibration again, which means that it's a perfect time to show you guys how to set it up in Steam VR. So you want to go ahead and select standing only because the tracking here is not perfect and you really cannot make a proper chaperone line. It simply won't work out. Then set up the headset to be in the center and click next again. Then you want to go ahead and actually place your headset on the floor and click calibrate and keep the number at 0 and you're done. So let's take a look inside. Alright, so here we are, and as you can see, the hands here are not perfect. Maybe you can't tell, but they are not perfectly aligned with my real life hands. So there's actually a built-in function in the NOLO VR system, so you want to hold out your hands like so, face the base station, and double click the menu button on the bottom. And then it will calibrate and it will look much better and it will feel more natural because it is more linked to your real life hands. So let's go ahead and move out here and talk about the display and give you guys a real-time feedback of what I think of this thing right now. So everything here looks pretty decent. In terms of the ghosting, it's actually not noticeable whatsoever. I'm trying to find something here. And you will most likely only notice the ghosting inside a sharp color change. For example, alternating white and black lines. So anyways, as you can see, I'm turning around and I'm always going 360 here. But once I go 180, the controllers will start glitching out because the base station can simply not see what I'm doing. Now inside the Steam VR home, I can go ahead and rotate, so I can fix that in here. But in most games, you don't have that option. And I'll show you what to do when you're stuck in a situation like that. So the display sharpness here is actually really good. Standing up close to this panel right here, everything looks very nice. The colors are clean. The contrast levels are pretty decent. As for distortion, there's a very minimal distortion on the edges here. It is what you expect with most headsets. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into a game. You're standing here, and the actual panel is right behind you. And your controls are pretty much loose tracking, and there's no way to turn around using the controls that you see in the Steam Home. So what do? Well, you go ahead and actually press the other menu button on top and double click it, and it will flip everything 180 for you, and you're pretty much done. And without this feature, this headset would pretty much be useless. Now let's go ahead and choose something. I'm gonna choose this one, and whoop, it's on expert. And let's see how it does. And yes, these controls do have vibration motors, but of course, they're nothing like the Vive. In fact, they kind of sound like a lightsaber. As you can see, the tracking is doing a pretty decent job. Of course, it is not perfect because it is kind of like a camera, and I'm going to lose this in a bit. And it is trying its best to keep up. There is a slight delay, and that is to be expected. So my right controller is kind of losing tracking, and yeah. Sometimes if you move too quickly and something happens, it happens every now and then, one of your controllers will go out of calibration and it will look something like this. So you're holding it straight, but it's kind of angled, and you want to have to do that again. And if you're competitive, that could lose you the game. So for Beat Saber, you're going to have a tough time clearing expert, and if you're planning on doing anything harder, then just forget about it. And now let's go ahead and play some climbing. So everything is going to look normal. You're going to play, you can move around, you can grab things, and it's going to work out pretty well. But until you actually have to go ahead and turn around 180, that's when things kind of get tough. If you try to do 180, you can see that the controllers will just simply not work, so you're going to constantly have to press the middle calibration button. And once you do that, you got to go ahead and turn around to face the base station. Well, climbing is going to work fine. It's just going to be a hassle to constantly have to press the 180 button when you're trying to turn around. Otherwise, it is what it is. Now, as for a game like Space Pirate Trainer, this is going to be a best case scenario. Tracking is going to keep up, gameplay is going to be fun, and you're not turning 180s a whole lot, so you won't have any issues with the tracking. Come on, there we go. So in terms of brightness, this headset is pretty much on par with the Lenovo headset, the Lenovo mixed reality headset that is. The same thing goes for the colors, and overall, you're going to have a very similar experience in terms of the display, not a very similar experience in terms of tracking. Alright, and now we're going to be playing some Pavlov in Minecraft. Now, I gotta say, this looks absolutely fantastic. The colors and everything here looks pretty sharp. It is definitely much better than the Vive, except when it comes to the brightness and the colors. Now, something I haven't talked about here yet is if there are any guard rays, and so far I actually have not experienced any, but we'll test that out in just a bit here. after I try to get one elimination, and then we can call it a game in here. I can see someone there, but you'll probably notice that the controllers are shaking. So that is something we haven't talked about yet as well. Hey, it's me from the future. So yeah, the controllers do vibrate and they do have a little bit of jitters. Now I feel like it could be fixed with a software update, but who knows. That being said, in most experiences you won't even notice it or even care about it. But if you're playing anything that requires any accuracy or precision, such as drawn games, bow and arrows, or especially gun games, then you will definitely have a hard time aiming. Screen door effect is much better than the Vive. The colors and brightness levels are similar to the mixed reality headsets. Ghosting is almost non-existent. And yes, of course it has some quad rays, but they are mostly under control. Personally, it didn't bother me too much. And the overall comfort of the headset was pretty good, especially after you're modded. It is a lightweight headset, and I never had issues with fogging up. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and conclude the video. And so here we are concluding the video with some mixed feelings. On one hand, it is nice to see NoloVR working as intended within its tracking limitations, being bundled up with a decent headset from Deepoon. On the other hand, it's 2019, heck for even 2018 standards, it's been outdated and taken over by the mixed reality headsets. Whether it's tracking, convenience, or the price, it pretty much beats it in every way. One cable, 2 connectors, no base station, you can move around in 360, and the pricing has been pretty cheap. Those things go on sale pretty often. That being said, not everyone in the world has access to the mixed reality headsets, and if that is the case, then Deepoon VR might be your best and only option. This is a prototype headset after all, as indicated with the missing audio hardware, so with that in mind, it will really all depend on the pricing. For a NoloVR tracked headset, it will require a very competitive price to be a viable option. Back when I got my NoloVR, it was priced at $100, but then they changed the price to $250. The Deepoon headset is around $250 as well, so it will be interesting what the pricing will be for this thing. I imagine a price point of $300 or $350 might be a realistic price point that they might be able to hit, but who knows, we'll find out. And with all that being said, if I do receive any information regarding the missing audio hardware or the pricing, I'll make sure to keep you guys updated in the description and comment sections below. And that is the state of NOLO VR in 2019. It is a great system at the time, but it took a while to get refined. Things I would like to see from NOLO VR in the future would be a dual PlayStation setup. Or even better, inside-out tracking for any headset out there. But who knows, maybe they can implement their technology with other headsets, with other Chinese manufacturers, and maybe they can make something new and affordable. Now once again, keep in mind that NOLO VR was intended for your phone, and for any head-mounted display that did not have any tracking out of the box. And other than that, that is all for this video. So thank you all for watching, and thanks to Deepoon for sending this out for review. Stay tuned for more unreviewed hardware on this channel, and if you have enjoyed this video and found it helpful, then hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care everyone.